Hey, welcome back to Divinely Uninspired, episode DSA 6. If you're for our neighbors down to the south of us, that's episode 16 for the rest of us. We got a lot to talk about. First thing, though, I'm going to brag because I called the Super Bowl winner.
You did.
Goodness.
All the way at the beginning.
Yep, you did.
At the very start of it, I said, I don't like this, but I think the Rams are going to do it. And through it all, I ought to love them because they made me look like a prophet or something, but I really just
calm down.
That's right.
I dislike them so much. So, but what are your all's reactions to the Super Bowl? I mean, disappointed, and do you enjoy it? We can talk about the halftime show here in a minute, but what about the game itself? We're a few weeks out, or I guess like 12 days out or something. So
it was good, right? Like it was a good Super Bowl. I think I enjoyed more of watching Matthew Stafford with his kids at the end. I didn't realize he had 4 girls. They're so cute.
Yeah, I didn't watch that long.
I enjoyed watching Matthew Stafford watch that girl fall off the stage and turn and walk away.
I did somebody was going to bring that up.
I did read about that.
That was pretty bad.
Yeah, that was very, very bad.
His response was the worst possible response you could have had.
Yes,
it was.
was.
To turn and walk away as if it didn't just happen.
But I mean, I can't say I blame him. He didn't cause it.
But he didn't even say, "Are you okay?" He didn't even look. Like as soon as she fell, he was like, nope.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, well, she should work on her balance. So,
oh my gosh,
what did you all think about the halftime show?
I loved the halftime show.
So you loved it now?
I loved it, but I wish it was long. Okay, let me back up. I loved it because I got to see Snoop.
Yeah.
I wish it was more. I wish I would have played more of their like songs they did in the 90s. Maybe more of a concert, less of a football game. That's kind of what I was hoping for. But
the halftime show can only be so long.
I know. It was very,
What's the one song they didn't do that you broke your heart?
Gin and Juice.
That's not even Snoop's best song.
There's another one though. I felt like they should have done.
He didn't do Drop It Like It's Hot.
Drop It Like It's Hot. That was it.
Seriously. Yeah. I was very disappointed that neither one of those. Mary J didn't play anything that she sung in the 90s. Like
they only got to each do one song.
Yeah, but
so they all
done
pick like their
in the
biggest
90s.
songs.
I'm very disappointed in that. But
it was a very good show though.
Yeah.
It
was good.
It was.
I felt like they all just picked like whatever their biggest hit was, and that's what they played.
They didn't play their biggest hit. Snoop's biggest hit would have been
Snoop was only there because of Dre. It was really Dr. Dre's show.
It really was.
And there was no Tupac until the end.
Dr. Dre was
They
supposed
did California Dreamin' like right for a
but
second song or something.
It would have been better to do it at the end and then do like some kind of picture of Tupac or something. They didn't
I
do
said
that.
California Dreamin'. That's the Mamas and the
California Love.
Papas. Yeah,
Yeah.
California Love.
Thank you.
Dr.
right.
Dre was supposed to be the main person, and then he invited all of them to do it with him. So that's why most of the songs were like from The Chronic and stuff in 2001.
Even then, it
like
still wasn't.
50 Cent dropping out of the ceiling.
Yeah. Eminem was awesome. Okay. He's not really, I like him, but like he's not my jam.
I had to listen to my wife talk about how attractive he has gotten.
Oh, everybody
cannot
did.
figure that
Me
out.
either. Yeah.
Ew.
I don't think he's
No.
attractive, but I know Jill said he aged like fine wine or something like
I know.
that.
I can't figure it out.
Yeah. Neither.
All right. Well, I am the champion. And if we had the rights to play that Queen song, we are the champions, but we don't have the rights to it because it would cost us our entire church budget for the year. So instead of the Queen song, you'll get to hear our song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jeremy Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. All right, so I need to clear up some comments that I made a couple of episodes ago because I was not very articulate in what I was trying to communicate. And so I've had people in my front lawn with pitchforks and trying to arrest me for these comments that I made about prayer. And so what I want to do is I want to clarify just a little bit because I still don't believe I said anything wrong. I just don't think I articulated what I was trying to articulate well. And so April and I were bickering back and forth about prayer. And I made the comment that when I say, well, I'm praying for you, like that is me praying for you, and you were like, absolutely not. That's not praying.
Still think that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's fine. That's fine. So I want to articulate a little bit. I want to clear up. Yes, I do pray for people. I do. So a part of my personal spiritual devotion time. I do the Book of Common Prayer. And some people love that type of thing, some people hate it, but there is actually a section in the Book of Common Prayer where the whole section is just a time of prayer for others. And so I do pray for people specifically at those times. But at the same time, I want to kind of talk for just a second about this concept called breath prayers, which is very it falls into this idea of Christian mysticism. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with Christian mysticism. Some people are really comfortable with Christian mysticism. And the vast majority of people probably don't have any idea what Christian mysticism is. Kind of in a nutshell, Christian mysticism is, it stems out of the desert and monastic fathers and mothers from the 3rd and 4th centuries. And it has a lot to do with the experiential side of our faith. The things that we just know to be true based on feeling that doesn't contradict, the scriptures or anything like that. But there was this practice that began being developed called breath prayers. This idea that and it goes along with Paul telling us, pray without ceasing. This idea that every breath, every inhale, every exhale is a prayer. And they would make these short phrases or syllables, monosyllabic, I think that's how you say it, things that we could say as we breathe. For example, a popular one was on the inhale, on the exhale, they would say Jesus, and on the inhale, they would say mercy. And it's mostly internal. It's not but there are people who will, Jesus, mercy, that type of thing. And there are these breath prayers. And Jeremy even talked a few weeks ago about this idea of Yahweh and how they're like breath marks. And so I'm going to articulate that, yes, I do pray for people, but I still believe that when somebody says to me in that moment, that the act of me listening, and this is Thomas Merton, he was a modern mystic, actually just up the road at Gethsemane is where he did his time as a monk here in Kentucky. What are you laughing at?
I feel like you're just talking a lot just to get out of not praying for people.
No, I do pray, but that's the point. I do pray for people. You know what?
Well, Jeremy needs to say something too, because he was a part of this conversation.
He did.
Yes. And I think he agreed with
Jeremy.
He said he agreed.
No, I agreed with the idea that if you're in a group of people and you go around and share prayer requests and you say, okay, we all are sharing our prayer request, and then we stop and we do the awkward thing of then we're going to pray about it. My comment wasn't when us saying those things kind of us praying them out, God was listening, and it's we have to invite him in. So I did say that, but apparently I've got lumped into this. No, I think what Rusty's saying makes sense. I think you were just talking a lot to try to over explain it, but I do think that,
I'm going to cut the last 5 minutes of the podcast. It's just going to be, I'm going to just say, I pray for people, and then it's going to be Jeremy saying you talk a lot.
No, I think it's good. I think that I do think that there is misconceptions about prayer. And I think that a lot of people, I think that's maybe a better part of the conversation, is that people do, and I know the breath prayers, and obviously I've studied Richard Rohr and all those guys, so I'm super familiar with the Desert Fathers and all that, and mysticism especially. But I do think a lot of people there's just misconception about what prayer is. And I think that we think of formal prayer, and that's what people want when they say I had a person text me last night and they said, well, they had a family member that was will you have Jeremy pray for me for this thing? And they were kind of why aren't you asking me to pray for you? And they were well, he's a pastor. And it was as if my prayers are more important.
Go to the top.
Yeah, to the top or whatever.
You've got a red telephone in your office.
Yeah, so I do think there are a lot of misconceptions about prayers that would be a good conversation one day about and I do agree with Rusty, when people have told me things before, like in that moment, sometimes I pray for them, like mentally, like I don't have to open my mouth to be praying for somebody. So I think that could be part of like what you were kind of saying too, is that like you're thinking about them, you're praying for them. But I think what most people want in that moment is they want to know that you're literally going to, you know, and maybe in their mind at night that I get down on my knees next to my bed and I say a prayer for them. You know, a lot of times when people have like surgeries and stuff, I always say, what time is your surgery? Because I do want to try to, you know, pray for them like when they're about to go back or that type of thing, even if I'm not there. So I don't know. It's
yeah. So if
people were emailing me about it too.
Yeah,
So,
and I had some not heated conversation, but some very passionate discussion with some people who just they just disagreed with my sentiment, and April being one of them.
That's right.
And so just know that if you really want somebody to pray for you, just ask April.
That's right.
Because
I will pray for you. I promise.
Because she will get down on her knees next to her bed,
I didn't
fold her
say that.
hands.
no, I will pray for people when they ask me to. Me
too.
for sure. And I think
Sure,
thank you,
Rusty. Sure,
Thanks.
Rusty. Rusty's going to think about you, not pray for you.
What's the difference?
Oh, let's not go there right now.
No. What's the difference between thinking? Because I mean, most of my praying is not verbal. Like the 99% of my prayers are my thoughts that I'm communicating with God and Him being all knowing.
Yeah,
so,
no. I think if you're really thinking about that, that is.
I'll tell you what
but
I'll do.
not when you're just like, I'm going to pray for you.
I'm
I'm
going to
praying
go in
right
a
now.
completely opposite direction here. I am not going to pray for anybody, but I will send good vibes. How about that? Can we do that?
Not with you.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. Well,
what I'm gonna start doing is whenever I pray for people, I'm just gonna send them the emoji of the praying hands.
Oh
there you go.
I'm not even sure that's praying hands. I'm pretty sure it's like people giving high fives. So y'all can say whatever you want.
That is clearly praying hands.
I don't know. People have debated. They think it might be like some people high fiving.
All right, then I'm just going to just type in praying hands.
Oh my
We'll
gosh.
develop our own emoji for praying hands that it'll be a journey themed praying hand
There you go.
emoji.
This
So,
has gotten out of hand.
all right.
Yeah, we're gonna have another episode to explain everything we just.
I think
talked
we
about.
need to pray right now.
We already did.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's right. Amen.
Good one, Penny. That's a good one.
All right. So let's talk about something a little more fun, but also slightly embarrassing for anybody who associates with the church. So there is this pastor down in Tennessee, and I don't even really want to call him a pastor because he is just nutso. But his name is Greg Locke, and he has made the news time and time again for different things, political, conspiracies and COVID-19 vaccine skepticism and all kinds of stuff. Well, this new one though has a kind of taken the cake. Tennessee preacher Greg Locke says demons told him names of witches in his church. So this guy, you can go on Twitter or YouTube or whatever. You can find these clips. Now, he says his comments were taken out of context. And having watched the video, I don't know how they could have been taken out of context. So here, I'll just read a little bit of it to you. The offering was over and the worship team at Global Vision Bible Church had just finished singing "Oh, How I Love Jesus." That's a really old song. When the Reverend Greg Locke began telling his church about his conversations with demons. I want to stop there. Notice it's plural, conversations with demons. So this is like a regular occurrence, I suppose.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he's got so much there's this stuff with this guy. Like a few years ago, I mean, people don't talk about this. Like he divorced his wife, who he said had mental illness, because she kept accusing him of like cheating with like other people. Like she was accusing him of being a cheater. And so like he said it was a mental illness and all this stuff. Well, then come to find out he'd been having an affair with the secretary and ended up marrying her. Like you can look all this up.
I didn't know that.
Like this is like this guy is like
Gaslight.
I mean, and I see people, and I'll be honest, I see people will like post things of his, people I love and care about, people at our church will post things of his like on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm like, I don't think you know how dangerous this guy actually is. I mean, this guy, you can read more, but I mean, for him to say that anything he said in that sermon was taken out of context, I mean, Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to
Yeah.
know why he was talking to demons. And
Well,
not
he
God.
said he was casting demons
I
out
know,
of
I read
somebody.
it.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
joking.
I mean,
So-
before you cast somebody out, it's only polite to know their name.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, what demon are you? Okay. Well,
So
yeah, you're out of
crazy.
here.
Yeah, hi, I'm Beelzebul. Yeah.
We know.
Yeah, that's right. Those demons, he said, had revealed the names of a group of, quote, full-blown spell-casting witches who had been sent to infiltrate Global Vision, a non-denominational church east of Nashville, Tennessee, where Locke is pastor. To God be the glory, I lie not, he told the congregation at Global Vision on Sunday, which was meeting in a packed tent on the church's property. We got first and last names of 6 witches that are in our church right now. And you know what's strange? 3 of you are in this room. So he's convinced like they are there to destroy
Does he talk like
his
that?
church. Yeah,
He
yes.
does. He does.
Yeah.
And he told them that if they don't leave, he's going to bring brooms up next week.
Yeah.
And they're going to ride out them and their little dog too.
This is something he said. You so much as cough wrong, and I'll expose in front of everybody under this tent, you stinking spellcasting pharmakia devil worshiping and mongrel.
They said about burning sage too.
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
they
burning
burn sage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's and if you're wondering where that pharmakia thing is, so that was actually Christianity Today did this thing. It was the most searched term on Bible Gateway this past year, and the reason is so pharmakia, the Greek word meant like sorcery type thing, and people automatically make the jump to pharmakia, pharmaceuticals, the vaccine. Oh no, the Bible's been telling us all along that the COVID-19 vaccine is the devil's work.
Now, I will say about Greg Locke, when he said he talks to demons, a couple months ago, he preached a sermon that he said all Democrats were demons. So he may have just been talking to some Democrats
That
who
could be
gave him
true.
the name of witches.
Probably
So, I mean,
terrible.
yeah, so he really did. He's sick. Like he really is
Yeah.
got some mental issues. And a lot of people,
Tennessee has some winners. Let's just say that.
and a lot of people love him. And that's the concerning
Yeah,
part.
Locke, who recently held a book burning of Harry Potter novels and other, quote, satanic works, also said, quote, troublemakers in the church had brought the witches to Global Vision to lure the church members into adultery. We will not tolerate that, all caps, Locke wrote in his email. So he is very, very concerned with witches. And I don't know. I think maybe he's overblowing the whole thing. I think maybe he needs to take a chill pill.
Sounds like
I don't know
he's
if guys like
crazy.
him
Yeah.
can. Like he is, and I don't know Greg Locke. I've never met Greg Locke, but I have been following his career for a while. And a couple of years ago, he produced a lot of stuff. Like he is definitely a Christian nationalist. And I know we get into the Trump thing, but he literally does believe that Trump is like the savior, like a second coming of
Yeah.
Jesus. Like he believes that and has preached about that. And when I hear him talk, and like especially like if you watch the video, like it is like cult. Like it reminds me of all of the definitions of a cult more than a church. And I think it's just concerning. But you know,
Well, yeah, and what's scary is when you listen to these clips, the amount of people who are amening and hallelujah and behind him and applauding what he's saying, it's scary. And it's like these people are more they are being they're celebrating who they hate versus whom we're supposed to love, and that just seems pretty antithetical to what being a part of the church is all about. Not now, a whole segment of society thinks that's exactly what the church is all about, is coming together to celebrate the common hate we have for people. But
in his defense, I mean, it would be kind of cool, like if there is a witch, if she rode a broom like off into the sky, like I'd
And a little dog,
I'd
too.
pay to see that.
Yeah, that
Like,
would be
I
kind of cool.
I would go.
I would pay to see a witch fly away. Yeah.
Yeah, he is definitely one of these guys that that we pay attention to him for the wrong reasons.
Absolutely.
But I don't know, if you're in east of Nashville and you want to go see a witch, you can go to Global Vision Bible Church. I don't encourage that. There's other churches that are in East Nashville, I'm sure, that are perfectly fine. So anybody else have any comments about witches?
That's just
No.
weird. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. I really hope that we stop hearing so much about Greg Locke, to be real honest with you.
Was there something there about IKEA? Did you say there's something there about IKEA?
No. I mean, I will say, okay. I will say having put multiple things together from IKEA that they are definitely of the devil.
Yeah.
But this is the word pharmakia.
Oh, okay. I thought you said what you said. All I heard was IKEA. And I was like, so does he have stuff against IKEA? The Swedish people?
He probably does.
Yeah.
He probably does because, they're a bunch of socialists or
Anyway,
whatever.
all right.
All right, let's move along because we've got bigger fish to fry. As long as the sun doesn't fry us first. So billionaire Bill Gates, who I actually really like Bill Gates, and I know that a lot of people don't like him, but I like Bill Gates. He's very self-aware and pretty funny. I listened to a podcast he did here recently with Dak Shepard and his crew doing Armchair Expert, and they dive into conspiracy theories. And the whole episode was on Bill Gates and how he is trying to kill all of us. But Bill Gates goes full sci-fi with global warming plan to, quote, block out the sun. First reactions based on the headline. What do you think?
Don't take away the sun.
Weird.
It is we don't need to put anything else up in our atmosphere. I'm sorry. No sort of whatever he's planning to do. Like, you are not the end all be all of who gets to decide on that.
I don't know. He's got a lot of money. He
does have a lot of money.
Maybe what he knows is that there really is a Superman. And Bill Gates is actually Lex Luthor, and it's like a real life thing, and he has to block out the sun so Kyle cannot get the sun and save the world.
I love it. I'm a comics guy, so that works for me.
It makes sense. I mean, my first thoughts are, and I know it's in the article, but as soon as I saw that, my immediate thought before I read the article was, isn't that how The Matrix started? And then actually the author quotes it. And then there was another really weird movie called Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah, that's how it started too, is they blocked out the sun. And anyway, it's really weird. But anyway.
Yeah. So I'm not going to read the article because it's got a lot of jargon and stuff in it, a lot of acronyms and things like that. Essentially, the plan is to put a whole bunch of calcium dust into the atmosphere, which will not block out the sun per se, but it will reflect the energy that is hitting those particles back into space. So we know that this happens because when volcanoes erupt, it sends a ton of ash and stuff into the atmosphere. And we actually see that when you have these massive volcanic eruptions, that the temperatures around that area for some period, I don't know if it's a long period of time, a short period of time, but it reduces the temperature on Earth in that region for a while. And so the thought is, well, the planet is continuing to warm, and we've got to do something to keep it from melting all the ice caps and the poor polar bears and things like that. What are we thinking about, throwing calcium into the air?
Why calcium?
I don't know. That's a good, maybe it has something to do with the half-life of calcium. I don't know what that means, but it made me sound smart. So,
because doesn't Sunny D have calcium in it?
It does.
We just throw a bunch of Sunny D.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the sun though, it's the one thing I think that brings happiness, to any, just the feeling of the sun on your face. Are we talking shade, or is it sun?
No. You would still see the sun.
It would see it. I need to feel it.
Well, you would still feel it, but not to the set. Because unless that would be a problem on another end if there was no sunlight reaching the Earth. The idea here is to limit the amount of sunlight that is hitting the Earth because our planet is getting hotter. Which I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know if this will work or not. The idea of throwing something into the atmosphere that we're not totally sure what's going to happen.
So past the ozone layer, is that what we're discussing too? Did he mention that? I didn't read the article. So I'm curious, because the ozone layer is created, it's there, it's full of gases, and that's what keeps the harmful UV rays from hitting us.
Yeah. So it says here that it'll be 12 miles up. So 12 miles into the sky.
I don't know either.
Here's what it says. Some scientists have suggested the dust could help harm the Earth's ozone layer. Okay, so there you go. As nobody knows with certainty what will happen until after the dust is released. For starters, the sun wouldn't actually be blocked. Here's your answer, April. But rather, the dust would reflect sunlight, similar to what happens when a volcano erupts.
Yep.
So it sounds like the ozone layer would indeed be affected.
And I don't understand, my thought is, and this my understanding is and I'm not smart enough, but A, wouldn't our gravitational pull just pull it back down? Or B, once you get into space, isn't space a vacuum? So it would be sucked out. Like, so, I mean, I don't like what
Good
keeps
point.
it from staying there. I mean, I don't know.
I don't either.
Like I said, I'm not smart to figure it out. It just sounds weird.
It
I think
does sound weird.
I think it's
I think
pharmakia that's
we should
keeping it
just
there.
we should just leave the sun alone. We just need to leave it alone.
But hey, at least he's thinking of something
What if
to
like,
try to help.
what if we
Yeah.
put something out there and then it knocks us off of our like rotation and then we
That's
it just-
dramatic.
Then
but-
we're all
and then
dizzy.
we're dead.
Yeah, we all die anyway. It just seems like a bad idea.
Well, we're going to get into that in a little bit later on. We're going to talk about the environment here in a bit because some people, they have a perspective that might not be such a bad thing. I don't know. I want to hear from our listeners what they think. Do they think we should, and if not calcium, what should we throw into the atmosphere?
Glitter.
Glitter. Okay.
Actually, I'm down with that. That's funny.
It would be very pretty,
That's right.
but it might like actually reflect more on it. It's like
Yeah.
when you're swimming and they're like, oh, well, you're getting twice the amount of sun because it's like reflecting off the water.
Yeah.
And how would we get fresh air? You know what I'm saying? Like if the dust, as Jeremy mentioned, I mean, we breathing that in too.
I suppose. I don't know.
Definitely
These are
the
questions
Matrix.
that scholars know the answers to, and we are not scholars. So,
I don't know if scholars know, scientists maybe.
well, that might be true too. Aren't they the same thing?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So we are going to go to our favorite segment, which apparently is everybody's favorite segment, which is what does Jeremy think? But this week, instead of Rusty coming up with a question or April or Penny or somebody else on staff, we have a listener question. And so I'm going to read this letter to Jeremy, and he is going to probably tell us he doesn't know because that's how most of these end, with him saying, I don't really know. But this is what he thinks, not what he knows. So it says this. Hello, I heard something today that I thought was interesting. So a pastor that I listen to sometimes said that the mark of the beast referred to in Revelation was actually referring to Emperor Nero. The pastor said the numerical value of Emperor Nero in Hebrews is 666. He said that the whole passage is part of coded letters to Christians of two churches who were heavily persecuted by Nero. Therefore, there is no coming of a beast because Nero is the beast already and burned down Rome and blamed the Christians so he could kill and persecute them. I'm interested to know if Jeremy thinks, parentheses, or knows if this is true. I also just think it would make a great podcast. Okay, we're not going to read all that because that's just her saying that she thinks this is a great question. And it is a good question. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Tabitha. Really appreciate that. So let's hear.
What does Jeremy think?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
That's what Jeremy thought.
No, I do. So Revelation is, and I'll go ahead and do a plug for Rusty. Rusty's going to do a what is class about Revelation. Revelation is always the book that people want to talk about and study and all that. And to me, Revelation is, when I started studying it, it almost became a letdown, if that makes sense, in the sense that I do live in the camp that most of what I think we see in Revelation has already happened. I do think that most of it is written to the first century audience. I think a lot of it is about the fall of Jerusalem. I think a lot of it is about Rome itself. And the actual 666 marks of the beast has been tied to not only Nero, but Vespasian and Domitian as well. All three of those were emperors or the Caesars at the time. All of them are rumored to have different things you had to do in order to do business in Rome. All of their names or their titles can be broken down through and it's a weird word that many of us don't know about, but gematria, which is basically a numerical understanding of letters. All three of their names, titles can be broken down into 666. And so most scholars are pretty much saying, yeah, like that's what's going on, is that this mark of the beast is about something that had to happen, whether it was on the coin, whether it was literally a mark that they had on their bodies, I've heard clothing they had to wear that potentially had these markings on it. But most serious scholars that I read would argue, yes, the mark of the beast is talking about either Nero, Vespasian, or Domitian, and what was going on in the first century. And so, yeah, I think that has already happened. Now, I also know, and I don't know, I guess is the better way to say it, is Revelation twofold in that it's a prophecy for back then and also a prophecy for the future. And I think that is a possibility. But I think a lot of that also depends on your view of eschatology, which is the study of the end times. There's 4 schools of thought in eschatology. The mark of the beast stuff and 666 about it coming comes from dispensational premillennialism, which I do not believe in. And that's where all your left behind stuff came out of. There's historic premillennialism, which I'm not really a big fan of either. There's postmillennialism, which is the idea that everything is getting better until Jesus comes. And people were like on board with that until World War II. And then it was like, yeah, things probably aren't getting actually better. And then amillennialism, which is actually the camp that I live in. I think Rusty does too. And so, but that's kind of, we don't have to get into all what those things means, but
Jeremy, I am actually pro-millennialism.
all right, there you go.
I just want it to happen.
Yeah. So, but a lot of that stuff, like I said, a lot of what we think about the end times, to be honest with you, we got from a series of books called Left Behind that came out not too long ago.
I just love them.
Yeah,
Terrible.
they honestly really are like the worst theology.
I've never read them.
I've read them.
Yeah, they really are.
Terrible.
And so yeah, I mean, I lived in the camp, and I know Rusty's going to teach his class in Revelation, so I'd love to hear what he thought. But I live in the camp that most of the stuff we see in Revelation has probably already happened. And John is actually painting pictures of the world either that's about to come or was happening when he was alive. Now, could there be twofold prophecy about some of this stuff? Then I don't know. I'm open to that camp. A little bit, but I think the mark of the beast stuff, we get a little bit, and it's like the Antichrist. Like Antichrist is not even in Revelation. It's actually in John's other letters. Rapture. One thing I will say that's fascinating to me is end time stuff and biblical prophecy like this. We only study it in America. Like it is not like a worldwide phenomenon. It's pretty much just here. Because when I was looking this up, when I got the article, I was like and in my mind, I was like, I've only heard this out of like certain Protestant denominations. I could not find it anywhere else. Now it's a product we've exported, but the majority of Christians around the world, this is not even a concern of theirs. And so I think that's kind of fascinating that this really is exclusively, in light of what we talked about with Greg Locke and some of the other stuff we've talked about, this phenomenon of even the study in the book of Revelation to be obsessed with, it seems to be primarily an American thing.
So why do y'all think that? Just curious.
Think that it's an American
thing. Yeah. Like, why do you think Americans just talk about it more than?
If I had to guess, I would guess that it has a lot to do with Americans viewing that we are the center of the universe.
Interesting.
It's all about our experience. Because one of the problems of the views that so many people hold about Revelation here in America is that if it's mostly about us in the 21st century, then it essentially was useless to the first century people to whom it was originally written, because we do know that Revelation is a book of hope. People are afraid of Revelation, but it's a book of hope. And the idea behind Revelation is this, it falls into this genre of apocalyptic literature, which amongst the other things of imagery that it pops up there, it's also about the hope that comes even after the suffering. So it's this idea of, yes, you're suffering now and you're going to continue to suffer, but this is what awaits us at the end of the suffering. Therefore, the suffering is all worth it.
Yep.
And so, honestly, most Americans don't suffer the way the rest of the world does. We like to say like, well, things have got to get a lot worse before the end times are here. And that's easy to say living here.
Right.
But when you've watched your child be slaughtered because they wouldn't denounce the name of Jesus in other countries, it's hard to tell those people things still have got to get a lot worse.
Right.
No, that's as bad as it gets.
Well, and I think too, like the end time biblical prophecy stuff. I mean, you see people pulling out some wild and weird theories. And I mean, I told them earlier, I was at the gym today and this guy just walks up to me and starts talking about Ezekiel 38 and Russia. And like, I better get right with God because of all this stuff that's happening, which is very serious, what's happened with Ukraine and Russia, like right now. But to say that's connected to Ezekiel 38, and he was like, so I hope you're right with Christ. And I was like, yep. And then put my headphones on and listen to my Eminem song. And so, but it was,
you ain't right with Christ, boy. You listen to that
it was actually
devil music.
It was actually NF, but still, it was the Christian Eminem.
NF is awesome.
But anyway, I do April's good stuff. But anyway,
whatever.
I think one thing that's interesting is, a lot of times with biblical prophecy and end time stuff and this stuff is America tries to write itself into the story. And because it is so kind of like, we don't really know what's going on. And honestly, a lot of it's just made up. It's a way to write ourselves into it, because I do think that we feel like we're supposed to be a part of this story.
Very interesting.
Even if it is, and that's like the whole Israel thing. Like one of the articles I was reading, though, I thought was really fascinating, was one of the guys was saying, we get fascinated, and there's a whole lot of people right now posting stuff about Israel and all that and the future of Israel, which I don't think biblically speaking that they have to become prominent again, but that's part of my millennial view. But one of the things was they were saying like, man, it's a business. Like Israel's not going to correct us because they're making a ton of money off of Americans going over there and for this end time biblical prophecy stuff. And so it's like, even most rabbinical people and most, traditional Orthodox Jews, they're not even buying into all this stuff. But because we are, it's become like a business, and people are making a lot of money off of it. And so it is just one of those things where it's like, it's gotten a little out of control, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to kind of dive back into the 666 thing for a second. So there are some arguments that could be made that 666 could point to Nero. We would actually have to change his name to Neron for it to work because of the value of the letters. That's not that uncommon. But then it has also been linked, to pretty much any political person in the last, because this has only really become a phenomenon that people are concerned about within the last 200 years. But every person in any sort of political landscape has been associated with the mark of the beast for a plethora of reasons. What's really interesting, though, is that the Greek word for beast is the word therion, Tharion. And if you reduce that to the Hebrew, the numerical code for that is 666. So part of the application, and this is kind of where I land with it, is so in the context of the chapter, it's talking about people who are marked by the beast and people who are marked by the lamb. And we get really hung up on those being marked with the beast. And so could it be Nero? Sure, it could be. Could it also be that we're talking more in a more abstract sense of those who are marked by the lamb, by Christ, versus those who are choosing to be marked by something other than Christ? Right. So maybe beast, the word beast in and of itself is the point, right, rather than an individual. So a lot of times we ask the wrong questions about books like this. We want to know, well, who is that? Who is 666 talking to? Whereas the ancient world, their approach would have been more of, well, what is this meant? How is this meant to function for my life? And it doesn't really matter who it is. What matters is that, like, I need to know how to continue to pursue Christ in this. So kind of the point of chapter 13 in Revelation is you can choose who you want to be marked by. You can, and he ties in Old Testament practices of phylacteries and the things that you wear. Do you want to be marked by the beast, or do you want to be marked by the lamb? And here's the thing that I think that people who worry about this type of thing, if you can't accidentally be marked by the beast, like,
because I thought the vaccine,
yeah. Well, yeah, it chipped you, but it didn't mark you with it. I don't actually believe that. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So if you're a Christian person and you're worried that, well, if I get the vaccine, does that mean I'm marked? Or it's not about a physical thing as much as it's a spiritual marking.
Yeah.
So, and then the other thing, the last thing I'll say about this, and I will save this for the Revelation class, the rest of it, but which will be in May.
I'm so excited.
I know, me too.
That we talk about prophecy a lot, and if you take all of the prophecy in the Bible, so we tend to think of prophecy as like soothsaying, future telling, predictions. But if you were to take every bit of prophecy, everything that this is the word of the Lord, and all of that from the whole Bible, only 11% of all prophecy in the Bible is any sort of prediction about future events. The rest of it is proclamation about who God is and what we know about his character. So it's interesting that we take the vast minority, which is prediction, and when we say prophecy, that's what we mean. Mm-hmm. We mean future predictions, when actually that is the exception, not the rule about prophecy. So it's interesting, and we'll talk more about that.
Well, and I think, just to close out, I think that people get, this end time stuff, and I always just go back to, well, what did Jesus say about it? And Jesus says, well, it's going to be like a thief in the night. which is essentially the idea of the saying is you don't know. Like if you knew when a thief in the night was coming, you'd prepare for it, but you can't know when that's going to happen. So, I think people just get and there are just some, like Rusty was saying, just some wild ties people try to make to things, and we get so obsessed with it. And I think it's the whole thing about which mark will you marry, even if it was a mark of Nero or Domitian, the whole point of it was you have to choose that. What are you going to choose? And that was such a big deal. So yeah, I agree with that. And, I think that we get so focused on what's going to happen versus how we live now. And I think that is just silly. I mean, to be honest with you, but to tap at this point, no, I don't think the mark of the beast is something that's necessarily, and even like the Antichrist. I mean, all it means is in replace of Christ. So anything that you put in replace of Christ is actually an Antichrist. It's not necessarily a figure as much as an idea of something you're putting in place of Christ. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So, Tabitha, hope that answered your question. And if anybody else was wondering, we hope that answered it. And if you would want more information on all of that, starting in May on Sunday evenings, I am going to teach a Revelation class. We're actually going to break that into 2 halves because it's a long book. And so we'll do the first 3 weeks in May, and then we will regroup and figure out when the next 3 will be, probably in the fall at some point. So let's talk about what's going on here at Journey. There's always exciting things happening. We hit a huge milestone this past week that we want to talk about. Maybe you saw it on our social media, but as a church, so we've been a church now for 11 and a half years at this point. And we hit a really exciting number. Jeremy, why don't you talk a little bit about
so we didn't realize it. So I've been keeping tabs for years, just a note like in my notes app or whatever. And every time we have a baptism, I just add to the number. And so after we had 6 2 weeks ago for Baptism Sunday, I was like, oh no, we just broke 300. And it was kind of this moment of it was really, really cool. So 300 is really cool. I think it's really cool because I know, and it's not a competition, but churches that have existed a lot longer than us have never even gotten close to 300, and we've done 300 in the almost 11 years, and that's pretty exciting. It does make me think if we get to 666, do you think anybody wants to be that person?
I'll be it. I'll get rebaptized.
The witches will come up.
We'll hold him underwater.
You know what I would love to do? Whoever that person is just right before they get baptized, just put a little dry ice in there.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy.
That would be hilarious.
But no, we were super excited, and it was crazy. It's just of those 300 baptisms, a majority of those people, when I was saying that on Sunday, I was looking in the crowd and looking at the people we baptized. And it's mostly adults, which is another thing that I would say is distinct about Journey. Most of our baptisms have been adults. It hadn't been kids. And so, so the people here are awesome, and their openness and what we've done has been pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. So 302 officially as of today. So if you're interested in baptism, please never hesitate to reach out to Jeremy or April or Penny or myself or really anybody, and we will be happy to have that conversation and walk that with you. If you have a child in our student ministry, the winter retreat is coming up just next week, March 4th, 5th, and 6th. That'll be at White Mills. If you have any questions about that, you can reach out to Spencer, our student minister. And for all other information, if keep in touch with what's going on, you can actually, if you serve here at Journey, you can manage your availability on the app. It's also the best way to give here at Journey, though we do offer places to give in person as well, if that's your jam. Okay, so I want to talk for a few minutes as a group about the environment, because I do believe that our environment's in trouble, and all the studies show that a large portion of society suffers from environmental anxiety, meaning that they're very concerned about what's happening to the planet. So here's the thing. Conservative Christians have historically not cared very much about environmental issues, often stemming from a belief that God's going to destroy the whole earth in the end anyway. So why do we need to take care of it? And in fact, some Christian people even are okay with the idea of let's speed up the destruction of this thing, because that's the sooner that Jesus will come back. And so kind of what I want to talk about is, should Christians care about the environment? Is this view of Earth's destruction something based on biblical evidence, bad theology? What? And if we should care about the environment, how do we help people care about the environment? So, go.
Oh.
Well, I mean, automatically you just know that me and Penny care about the environment because we both drive Subarus.
That's
and
right.
So
Oh my
Everybody
gosh.
else,
we
get you a
just
Subaru.
automatically have been deemed as hippies because we drive Subarus.
Can I admit something? So I just learned like 2 weeks ago that Subarus are not Australian cars.
They're Korean.
Yeah, I thought because they call they even have the guy with the Australian
Yep.
accent
Yeah.
on there, and they are not Australian cars.
Brilliant marketing.
It is.
Yes.
I mean, I have some Australian friends, and they all love Subarus.
What they don't tell you is not just a Korean; it's actually North Korean. Kim Jong Un is a
Shut
Subaru
Oh
guy.
my gosh,
No,
Jeremy.
are you
You
serious?
need to mute
I'm
his
like,
mic.
I need to rethink this.
You need to mute Jeremy. He
How
needs to
awesome
be.
would that be though if that was like his master plan the whole time? Like get everybody loving Subarus and then be like, no.
I
They
cannot.
turned into Transformers. That's how the Transformers
Cool.
started.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy.
Anyway.
Mute his mic.
So no, I think okay. So as I drink out of my plastic bottle here,
a single-use plastic.
I just
know.
want it known that mine is reusable.
Go April.
I
Thank
normally
you.
would not use this, but I had a real bad cough and I grabbed a bottle.
Although
But
I did do that earlier.
no, I do think that, I think one of the quotes I looked up actually that just really ran through me earlier when I was looking up the 666 stuff was one of the quotes in one of the articles. The guy literally said, why wallpaper a house if it's going to get knocked down tomorrow? And that was like his view is like, why do we care what happens to the earth if it's all going to burn? I do think it's bad theology. I mean, in my What Is class, that we kind of ended this last session with an idea of that the whole point of the gospel is bringing heaven to earth because God created earth and earth is good and the whole earth is his. And we've been made stewards not only of our lives, but also stewards of what he's created. And so we ended with that and talking about that. So I personally think that the environment matters. We've done a lot. And even on a side note, even if it is all going to burn one day, who knows when it's going to burn? I mean, we talked about even in the class this last week, somebody was asking about time and I was like, the Bible is very clear that, this idea of like 1,000 years is like a day and a day is like 1,000 years. Like who's to say that, it's not 2,000, 3,000 more years before Jesus even comes back? Like we're long gone. And what are we handing our kids and their kids and that type of thing? And so, even the idea of, even if it is going to burn one day, and I think it goes back into our conversation earlier about our need to write ourselves. Every generation thinks they're the generation that the world's going to end. I mean, just study that. Everybody thinks that they're the ones the world's going to end.
Right.
And it hasn't yet. And so who's to say it's not going to be another 2,000, 3,000 years before Jesus comes back? And let's say, even though I think it's bad theology, let's say the whole thing is going to burn. What are we leaving our kids? What are we leaving their kids if we don't start taking this seriously? And we have been called. I mean, that was the first call of Adam and Eve, was to be the stewards of what God has created that he calls very good.
Yep.
And so why would we think that we shouldn't take care of this? But anyway, that's just my thoughts.
So how do you take care of the environment?
I drive a
Personally,
Subaru.
I drive
Yep.
a Subaru and then I drive a pickup to offset that. So it is difficult because so here's the thing. I think there's concerned with our environment. I also think it's become an agenda. And so I do wrestle with what is true and what's not true. I'll be honest. I
Me
really
too.
do. I do think you can't say the environment has not been impacted by humans and what we do. At the same time, what are we, you know what I'm saying? What messages are true? What messages aren't, like where we live in Bullitt County, so me and my wife are big recyclers. They don't even offer recycling where I live.
They don't,
They
yeah.
literally don't offer it where I live. And to be honest with you, so to answer that, Penny, we're lazy. We just throw it in the trash where we could recycle it and drive it to the facility and all that stuff. And I watched an episode of Bluey recently where they did that. So maybe I should do that more. But because Bluey's so good.
I just meant some people
greatest.
are more green, right? Like they use products that don't have chemicals in it, or they'll use, I will say, I hate these, the paper straws. They are the worst thing ever.
They collapse in on themselves.
And then they get all, just gross, soggy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, just don't litter, right? Do
Yeah.
your best to take care of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that simple things we try to use as less water as possible. We try to all buy efficient products and like I said, that's where I'm guessing. Am I doing the right thing?
Right.
So we do those type of things. I am very conscious of products that I buy. I try to be. I don't always try to just buy the cheapest thing. That goes into fair trade and stuff, which is different than environmental. But I am trying to be aware of the products that we use. I'm also even throwing things away, some people will just put anything in the trash, like TVs and batteries and all that stuff. I'm very conscious of can I put batteries in the trash? Like I've Googled that before. Can I put batteries in the trash?
I do that.
And
Can
technically,
you?
well,
No.
you're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to,
And
but I do.
Anyway, but like there's a lot of things out there like that like you just gotta, but it is hard, to figure out what we can and can't do. But I do take it very seriously. I do think that we should have more conversations about it.
What about you, April?
Oh, I definitely think that we should take care of it to the best of our ability. I'm kind of with Jeremy. I don't know what's true, what's not true. Penny, like what we can do, what we can't do. I know at our home, like I thought about, okay, well, I'm going to buy some reusable straws, but then I'm going to get them off Amazon and they're going to like all the money spent and the gas spent, like getting them to my house. Now I know I can go to Walmart and get them, but that's my point. Like, what are we really doing?
But then again, the Walmart had to get them shipped there.
Exactly.
And I think that I do believe we need to do everything we can to take care of the planet. But at the same time, I think that we can get into this trap of am I doing the right thing or am I doing the wrong thing? And at the end of the day, I think there is very little that we as individuals can do that have a grand impact on things. That's not to say that, that we can't do our part, but our part is...
No, and I agree with you because I think that, I don't want to get into this because it's just going to...
Then don't.
Politically, I tend to align myself more with people that are, and there's different parties, obviously, so all different views. But to your point, I agree. I don't think as individuals we can do very much, but there are people that need to hold some of these corporations that are creating obviously issues in our environment accountable. And the only people that are going to be able to hold them accountable for the most part are us as consumers. But let's be honest, we're going to keep buying the Apple products. We're going to keep buying stuff on Amazon. So we are dependent in some ways on some of these governing bodies to hold them accountable because Jeff Bezos could care less what anybody at this table thinks. But you start taxing him or you start putting tariffs against him, you start doing these type of things, he'll start paying attention, and I don't know, I'm assuming Jeff Bezos is fairly environmentally, or maybe he's just concerned about his bank account. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, he's trying to get off the planet with his rocket ship. So
maybe he knows we're doomed. Maybe these billionaires, maybe Bill Gates and Bezos know stuff we just don't know. Like we're in a lot of trouble.
Elon Musk wants us all to go to Mars. Yeah. So there's that.
I will say that movie I watched recently on Netflix, Don't Look Up. That was I don't know if you've seen that or not.
I loved that.
I thought it was all about COVID. It's actually all about the environment.
Oh, I thought it was about COVID too.
Yeah, no, it's actually about the environment. No, it's an environmental movie. But anyway, I'm sure at this point we've already made a bunch of people mad. But I do think that we just have to be aware of it. I do think that we have to think about, where we buy our products from. And as individuals, we do what we can. Let's just all agree litterers are the worst people on the planet. Like if you litter, I just want to punch you.
There's nothing that makes me angrier than sitting behind somebody in a red light and they like open their window and throw something out or open their door and toss it out. One time I got out, there was a high school kid and he threw something out of his window and at a red light, I got out of my car, picked it up and put it back in his car.
I did that too. I did that too.
Yeah. That's funny.
There was a guy that had something, he threw it out his window and I picked it up, stopped and put it in the back of his pickup. Like I just threw it in his truck bed.
Yeah.
I was like, here you go.
Now, I'll throw out a banana peel, but to me, that's like decomposing.
That's
a little different.
biodegradable.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's
It's different. So
that's different.
It reminds me of Mario Kart. You're throwing out banana pills.
Well, I'm just saying, I wouldn't throw out like plastic or cups
I throw out red turtle shells.
half of an eaten hamburger on my way home or something. You know
if
what I
I
mean?
saw you throw out a banana peel and I was far enough away and didn't know it was a banana peel, I'd probably still follow you home and slash your tires.
Whatever, Jeremy. He ain't right. But yes, we should take care of the environment. And I do wish Bullitt County would do better about offering recycling because I called our local garbage company about that too. And they said, well, there's a facility you can take it to.
We offered to pay for it.
Yeah, we
were
did
like,
too.
We'll pay for it. And they were like, no,
we have countywide and they just don't offer it. So they did say there is a place in Bullitt County we can take it to. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Well, then you're driving there.
That's what I'm saying. It just doesn't make sense to me.
There.
Yeah.
Bring it on your bike.
Yes.
Go.
No, that's not going to happen. Have you seen my hills?
You need to get a vehicle that you can take like human waste and oil waste and use that to power your vehicle.
Well, I've had mine for a very long time, so that counts, right? Like I'm not buying new vehicles, so it's not.
No, actually, older vehicles are worse for emissions.
Why is it worse? Because then it's not going into the junkyard.
No, because it's putting more emissions into the air.
Like my truck, my pickup is eco-friendly, which apparently does less emissions. Which again goes back to my point. I don't know what to believe or not to believe, but here's what I do believe. I do believe we are affecting. There's something going on. We are. They show these clips of like these polar bears out there. Like, I don't know about all that, but like. you know, we
The
have
sad
to be
song.
honest. Like we are doing things that
Yeah.
are impacting the earth. And so just being aware of that, conscious of that. And I do think that these corporations and a lot of these things that are creating, I mean, you know, I went to Los Angeles for the first time a couple years ago and they talk about smog. Like you see it, like it's
Yeah,
not a
Aaron
joke.
said that
Like
too. It's really bad.
It is really bad. And you look up and you're like, this can't be good. And like, even like when I'm watching, like there's a factory on my way into work here and you see all that stuff coming out of the smokestacks and
Right.
you're like, I don't know what any of that is, but it doesn't look like it should be
Water
going
vapor.
into the air.
It's just water vapor.
Well,
Well,
but then
wait.
too, like the U.S., because there's other countries that are doing
Yeah.
far worse. And
yeah.
if they're not being held accountable too, then it's kind of it has to be a global effort. I think, not just a
Okay, so here's I think I have a solution. We'll end with this. I think we need a one world government
Oh my gosh.
where everybody has to wear something on their hand, number of some sort, maybe, or a mark, and to protect the planet, you have to participate.
It's a world mark.
Oh my
Like it's just
gosh.
one
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, it's
So
just
who's running it, Rusty?
Yeah.
Jeremy is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
What if that's the secret the whole time?
Oh my gosh.
What if the mark of the beast was really, we're the beast because we're destroying the earth?
That's it. That's it. You heard it here first, folks.
We just cracked Revelation.
Oh my gosh.
Revelation is now solved. You don't ever have to read it again.
Oh my gosh.
Jeremy is the beast.
Yeah. I'm not the beast. I drive a Subaru.
Oh, Jeremy's not the beast.
The people that don't, yeah.
I guess I'm the beast because I drive a
You're
van.
the woman who rides on the back of the beast because your van is the beast.
Okay,
So-
whatever.
All right. Well, solved. No more questions about Revelation.
No more podcast.
Hey, on a serious note here, we do need to be praying for, and I'm actually going to pray for this, people. We need to pray for the Ukraine
yes.
and the situation going on there, and just protection for those people.
Yes.
That the world would respond well and in loving ways, and that justice would be served, whatever that means. So I don't know, anybody else have any comments about that?
I hate thinking about the people over there and what they're going through, the anxiety, and it's awful. So
You just like to think that we're past that and we're not. Like
Yeah.
you really do. Like you think that like, I don't know. It's like you see all the stuff that happened in the Middle East and you understand that part of that is like, I mean, part of that's religious, part of, I mean, but then you think about like, you know, what's going on and you got to think like, did we not learn anything
Right.
from World War I and World War II? And
Yep.
I mean, did we really not like, and clearly we haven't, I'm not just saying Russia, but as people, we clearly haven't learned our lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. So prayers for, and honestly, and this might not be popular, but prayer for the people of Russia, like
Absolutely.
the citizens of
Yeah.
Russia. They're, I mean, the sentiment there is they're not thrilled with this either. It's a very small, well, I wouldn't say small, but it's a specific group
Right.
that is pursuing this. So prayers for the people of Ukraine, prayers for anybody who is going to have to deal with that in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, that's April@JourneyShepherdsville.com. If you have anything podcast related, that's podcast@JourneyShepherdsville.com. Have a great week.